students. It's available to you at home. And when you finish it, you actually get a micro-credential, which is a level 1 certification in culinary medicine from the University of Montana College of Health, where I have my appointment. And Eric, throughout our webinar today, we'll be sharing some links that we have to that about the course and then some of the reference that we talk about. So I want everyone first, just RELAX, as Aaron Rodgers used to say, just relax. You don't have to worry about taking notes. All the things I'm talking about, including the recipes, we'll send those links out, and you can go there and get all the information you need. So just relax, enjoy. If you have any questions, just pop them over, and as Eric said, I will get to them. Culinary medicine, as I was mentioning, we have a kind of real fancy definition. It's a multidisciplinary, evidence-based approach to looking at the ingredients and techniques that we use to prepare foodstuffs with an eye towards optimizing health and wellness through the food experience. And that is totally a mouthful of word salad. But basically what we're doing is expanding beyond nutrition, looking at all the data that we have out there that affects all aspects of what we eat, not just the nutrients and the foods we pick, but how we eat, with whom we eat, when we eat, why we eat, and the things that affect us. And we'll be talking a little bit about that today, because this is kind of an interesting topic that we're having. When we talk about our practical culinary medicine, which again, I love, because it's practical, right? It's great to learn things. It's great to get an education. Many critiques about us in academics is that we teach things that have no practical value in the real world. Well, I want to assure you that culinary medicine has a lot, and that's exactly what this webinar series that we do each month is about. It's about taking that knowledge that we teach in the classroom, or you can learn at home online, and then putting it into practical application in your kitchen, literally from the classroom to the kitchen. And last month, one of the things that we talked about was one of our goals, one of our foundations, one of our tenets that we try to achieve in culinary medicine is something I call the zero waste kitchen. Because, and this actually comes from more the culinary part of culinary medicine than the medicine part. Anyone who's ever had to pay for medications know that those can be quite expensive and it can be difficult to manage those costs. But when you're running a professional kitchen, as I've done, the number one thing that you have to do is control your foodstuffs, so your food costs, excuse me. So if I want to serve my customers really good, high quality food, I don't want to waste any of it. And that becomes economically practical for all of us at home. And it becomes a good practice in terms of sustainability for the planet. So when we're buying those local, fresh, organic ingredients and we're using them and we're not wasting anything, that saves us money. And again, it's a sustainable approach to diet. Roughly estimating about 30% of all the food produced in the United States each year is wasted. And that's something that all of us can improve on. So last month we talked a little bit about, hey, we're going out, we're buying these fresh organic carrots, we're getting them with the tops on. That's helping us determine the freshness, the vitality, the vibrancy of these organic carrots. And again, in the course, we talk about why we make those choices. Here in this webinar, we want to talk about what we do with them once we've got that stuff. And we talked actually about using the carrot greens in a fresh carrot top pesto. And one of the questions that I got after the webinar was done was, that was great, Chef Dr. Mike, thanks a lot. What do we do with the rest of the carrot, right? We know how to use the carrot part, but you said we want to use the greens, so you've got these kind of stemmy things, and you've got the tops and the bottoms of the carrots. Can we do anything with that? And we will be using that, and that kind of led to an integration, and why I chose today's topic, with some of the other questions that I got. And I don't know if any of y'all saw this, but just the other day, maybe a day, 2 days ago, a report came out, and I found it really interesting in that, a lot of folks who have kids going back to school are concerned, rightfully so, about the virus. And so they're looking to not just throw a bag of chips in their kids' lunch, or, the kids get a candy bar or whatever, whatever they get at the school cafeteria out of the vending machines, but make sure that they send them off with something that's going to help increase their immunity, help increase their health, and help potentially, protect them from being vulnerable to COVID. And that was along the lines of specific questions I got asking, and you may have heard about this. It was really kind of a hot topic, I think probably about 2, maybe 3 years ago, because of one of its benefits is a increase in our immune function is bone broth. And so people were asking, hey, should I be going out and buying bone broth? Can I make bone broth? Does it work against, is it something that might work against COVID, et cetera? And that's what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to give you the lowdown about bone broth, but also stocks in general and broths, kind of what are the differences. And there's a article that I wrote not too long ago, just several days ago. And I think Eric can probably pop up that link. It's on the website as well. That goes into kind of great detail about that. But basically, I want to explain first from a culinary perspective, there is a difference between these three things. And then I want to take a look at what you need to be aware of if you're going to just buy a ready-made version at the store. And then finally, the third and last thing we'll talk about is, are there health benefits there? And believe it or not, eventually I'll get back to the carrot tops and peelings because that does come into play. So if we talk about stocks and broths and bone broths from a culinary perspective, when we talk about a stock, if you've ever tried to make a recipe that you got from a place that you ate or something that you had that was absolutely delicious when the chef made it and you dined out and you followed that recipe to the freaking letter and you were disappointed at home, 9 times out of 10, the difference is the stock. You probably use something out of a box, and all stocks at all restaurants we make in-house. And the reason is, as I'll share later, you go out to buy a box of stock and it can be $6 or more a quart. When you make it at home, it is literally pennies per quart. And so in our zero waste kitchen practice in culinary medicine, that's what we use. And we use every little bit in the kitchen. So when we're making a stock, one of the key items that we have to have are bones. So they can be chicken bones if we're making a chicken stock. They can be beef bones if we're making a beef broth, fish bones if we're making a fish stock. If we're making a lobster stock or shrimp stock, then generally it's the shells of those animals which function as their bones. And what we do is, again, when I get a chicken, I trim it up. I've got this carcass left over. I throw it in the freezer. When I've got 2 or 3 in a big, basket full of trim, and trim is what we refer to in the kitchen of those carrot bits when we take off the tops and tails of our vegetables, those little bits when we cut that stem end of the onion, those little bits of the garlic, all those leftover, bits and bobs, we call that vegetable trim. We take that trim, we take that carcass, we throw it in a big stock pot, 8 to 12 quarts, we fill it up with water, turn it on, and you could walk away, come back in, 4, 6, 8 hours, let it cool, and you've got homemade stock. And that is stock. And one of the things that differentiates stock is those bones, because in those bones, when we're cooking it and flavoring it with those vegetables, we're extracting collagen. And that leads me to the discussion of bone broth. What is bone broth exactly? Well, bone broth technically is nothing more than the bones that we put in with the water. So it is the bones, the little bits of carcass, And again, that connective tissue, all those bones, the vitamins, the nutrients, but particularly that collagen is going to dissolve out. And when you get a bone broth or a stock, one thing that differentiates it from a broth is if you put it in the refrigerator and then pull it out the next morning, you'll see it's kind of got a little jiggle to it. And that jiggle is the gelatin, and that reflects that collagen content. And so that's what differentiates a stock from a broth. A broth can have all those vegetables, but it usually is just the meat and not necessarily the bones that are being simmered. And many times broths are something that will serve with the meal, and it's taking those cooking liquids and just reducing them down. But bone broths and stocks are distinctly different in that they have that collagen. And that turns out to be a very powerful, very healthful component, not only for our bones and our connective tissue and for our skin, as one might surmise, but also, believe it or not, it's incredibly important for our gut health, which of course affects our immune system. And so bone broth and stocks, and the way to think of a stock is just like an extra yummy bone broth. And that's essentially what it is. Those things really do, studies have shown, have positive, healthful impacts on our wellness and our health. And gosh, you know, it's incredible when you think about it, because they may be among the most ancient foods humans have ever eaten, because you got some bones left over, you got whatever, you throw it in a pot, you add some water, and you come back and you eat it. So every time you have one of these delicious homemade sort of stews that have simmered with the bones and the meat and the vegetables, you're essentially having a stock created in that pot along with the meal. So that's the culinary difference between broths, stocks, and bone broths. So what happens when you're in a pinch and you say, gosh, you know, I really want to do this, but this sounds like a hassle. I don't really want to do that. Although if you look at the recipe, it's really simple, and I'll recap that at the end of this. And you go to the store and you look and say, well, I got to find the bone broth. I see there's stocks over here, but there's a bone broth. What's the difference? And this is where, you know, it's caveat emptor, buyer beware, where our government lets us down once again, because according to the USDA, they don't care. There is absolutely no legal ramification, no legal difference between labeling something a broth, a stock, or a bone broth. In the eyes of the USDA, it's all the same as long as it has water, some seasonings, and animal bits and bobs. And the quality of those, you know, you have no control over. So when you go to the store, literally, you don't know what you're going to get. And as I mentioned earlier, one of the disappointing things, and I actually went out and priced this, if you want to get some celebrity, celebrity chef stock, that can run you $6 to $10 a quart. You want some bone broth from the same, you know, famous faces, over $12 and over a quart. And in fact, if you're just looking to say, well, I'm just going to get maybe some of this collagen, there's a celebrity doctor who is selling collagen. Basically, it's just dehydrated bone broth, is what he claims, for over $50 a pound. Now, folks, to make this, you take your leftover bones, once again, put them in a pot with vegetable bits you would throw away, add water, let it simmer for at least 4-6 hours for chicken or beef stock. And then, and we were taught in culinary school, you have to stand there and you have to skim it and take it off. Here's a simple kitchen hack to do that. Take it, strain your broth, put it in the refrigerator, come back the next morning, there'll be a layer of fat on top, scrape that off, you're done. You've got defatted, skimmed broth for literally pennies a pound, for pennies a quart. And as I said, this stuff really does, the science really backs up that when we use quality ingredients, when we're making this delicious stock, it has health benefits. My only warning to this is once you do this, you will never, ever go back to something out of box. And even if you're in a pinch, you'll look at it and you'll see that price and you go, oh, no, I can't do this. Make a big batch of it. Keep a quart in your fridge for when you need it for a sauce, a risotto, pasta sauce, whatever. Put the other bits in your freezer. They'll keep a month or more. Really, this is a culinary philosopher's stone. And what we're literally doing when we take and make a stock from scratch is we are taking what most people literally toss in the bin. It's garbage in their kitchen, and we're turning it into edible gold. And that, in a nutshell, I think is a great example of what we strive to do in culinary medicine. So I know I kind of went a little bit over my allotted time there because we want to leave some time for questions at the end. So I'll kind of stop there. And again, I think Eric's already put up some of the links. Don't worry, there's a recipe on the website for some light chicken stock. And again, you'll see a category of what these things contain. One of them is called alliums. That just means that every stock or broth will contain the trim from either onions or leeks or garlic or scallions, things like that, all members of the onion family. And that's all that means, because we almost always have that group in our stocks and bone broths, and along with then other assorted vegetables. The most commonly used are, because it derives from a French history of cooking, and a classic mirepoix would be bits from carrots and celery and stuff. But you could certainly, and especially if you're doing just a vegetable, it's not really called a stock because it doesn't have bones, but it's called a nage, but a vegetarian equivalent, just any of the vegetable bits that you have. Mushrooms, tomatoes are used in some certain stocks, particularly seafoods, etc. So don't sweat the details. It's all good.
Okay. So you ready for some questions, Michael?
I am. Fire away.
All right. Can I use any kind of vegetables to make stock or broth?
Absolutely. So as I said, traditionally, if we're doing a stock or a broth, we'd have at least some member from the onion family. Generally, something along the lines of carrots. You can certainly use parsnips. Other root vegetable trimmings are fine. And one thing I do want to add that I forgot to mention, when we use that carcass, like if you get a chicken and it comes with all the giblet bits that you may or may not use, you can use all those giblets in the stock. That's a great way to use them. Do not use chicken livers. They disintegrate during the simmering process, and it'll turn your stock very cloudy. It'll kind of give it a kind of off taste to it. So do not use chicken livers, but all the other giblets that you want, you can absolutely use in there. And one other bonus that I always get is that when you're done with that carcass, it's chicken picking time, because you can get, off an average carcass, even though I trim it up real well before I put it in there, I probably get, a quarter to half a pound of some of the most delicious seasoned post chicken meat that you can have. And that's absolutely perfect to make, chicken salads and things like that with stuffed pasta and all sorts of stuff. So that's another way that instead of just finishing, throwing that carcass away, we're extending the money that we pay in terms of economics. While we're making stock, we're actually making something for chicken salad. So that's a time efficiency. And again, it's respect for our ingredients. As a chef, I'm dedicated, something, whether it's a carrot or a chicken, is giving its life for me. And that's something we strive to acknowledge and appreciate in culinary medicine. That's something that we really, want to honor. And so that's a very important aspect of it as well.
Great. What is the best way to store stock?
So a couple of different ways. One is just to put it in the refrigerator. And as I say, I was trained in a painful way to do it, and habits are hard to break. So I'm always watching my stock, and I am one of these OCD, people that is there, skimming it. And then sometimes, I even do the egg white wrap to clarify it. Honestly, you don't need to do any of that. Just take out the big chunks, put the liquid in the container, set it overnight in the fridge. So you've got a big pot sort of overnight in the fridge, and you'll have that fat solidify, whatever fat is there. You can skim that off. And if you do the light chicken stock, of course, that's a great cooking layer. That's schmaltz, as we say, which is very big in Eastern European cooking as a cooking agent. But you could skim that off, and then I always like to keep about a quart in the fridge for stuff, and then freeze it, and it will keep a month or more in your freezer. But I guarantee you, once you start using it and see all the applications and the taste, and it makes you feel better because it is really good for you. You'll be using it up way before the stock will ever go bad.
Great. How does bone broth improve gut health?
So that's really interesting because it's not intuitive. So how that actually works is we're replacing and giving our bodies the raw materials, so that the cells of our intestine can secrete what's actually called, it's actually made out of collagen and other constituents. But to protect our gut, there's actually a mucus lining between our human cells and the gut bacteria that live there. And the thicker that layer is, that reflects better gut health. So we love our gut bacteria. It's a symbiotic relationship. You hear about taking probiotics. We love them, but kind of like, some members of probably your family or neighbors, we need to keep a little distance there to keep a healthy relationship. And so we have to have that border integrity. And when we're subject to stress or illness or a bad diet, we lose the integrity of that layer. And that allows some bacteria, some of which are bad, some of which are normally good, like kinds of E. coli, to get into our bloodstream or change into a pathogenic kind and get into our bloodstream and cause all sorts of havoc and increase our susceptibility to other types of infections. So bone broth really helps us increase our safety barrier. If you think about, we talk about social distancing in COVID, when you're using, bone broth and particularly stock, again, which is just tasty bone broth, you can think of it as giving, our intestines sort of a social distance, from the bacteria and viruses that are always entering, our GI tract.
Great. I heard bone broth helps with weight loss. Is this true?
This is true. Yeah, there have been some studies. And the thought is that, again, besides just the collagen, bone broth, and again, stock. So whenever I say bone broth, everything that we say about bone broth applies to stock, except it's in the kitchen. Honestly, it's much more useful and it's a lot more tasty. And it cracks me up because when you go to the store to price these things, the thing that has the least ingredients, which is bone broth, which is just literally bones in water and boiled, actually that's what they charge the highest price for because of the additional hype. So when you're making your stock, and when we talk about bone broth, remember we're talking about this homemade stock that is bone broth. It's just extra tasty. It contains a lot of protein as well, and that protein helps fill us up. So just think about when you eat a hearty stew or a hearty chili, it's the same kind of effect. It just kind of fills you up, and it fills you up in a way that isn't dependent on ultra processed emulsifiers and fats and sugars and things like that. So it really does, as a healthy diet, contribute as one of those factors that help people get to a much more healthful weight.
Can I use bones that have already been cooked to make stock or bone broth?
No. So, I know some people do, but really, again, if you think about it, if we've roasted that chicken, or I know some people say, well, I go out to the store and I buy the roasted, rotisserie chicken, and then I keep all my bones and I use them for bone broth. You're really not, they've already been cooked out once. So can you get something out of that? A little bit, the same way, you can make, a ricotta cheese from the whey. You can actually, make cheese again from the whey. but you're not going to make mozzarella from the whey. And so once you've, with the same thing with those bones, once you've really extracted all that good bit by cooking it, you really don't want to use that for a stock. You're not going to get the same sort of punch, and you're not going to get the same sort of flavor. So when that's one good reason, when you get these bits and cuts of meats and chickens and things, trim them, but save those bones. Just throw them in a Ziploc plastic bag. Put them in the freezer. The other great thing that you can use, a lot of times, when you're trimming up for again, when we're talking about poultry like chicken or duck, are the wing tips. They're great for stock. And a lot of times, people don't really eat them, or they just cut them off to serve the breast. So you could certainly, use those bits as well. Any extra skin, any little bits that you trim, save those trimmings. Don't throw them away. Put them in that Ziploc with the bones and put them all on your stock.
Okay, great. Looks like we're running out of time, so maybe we have time for one more question.
Sure.
What if I have to buy some stock, Michael? What do you recommend?
Okay, so you're on the road and your stock container broke and you are in a pinch because the boss is coming over to see you whip up some culinary medicine magic in your hotel room. Oh my God, what am I going to do? Well, stores. So get on the internet, look at the brands, look at what they contain. Always look for ones that are organic, because we know, at least what we're getting in terms of the ingredients are a little bit higher quality that we can verify. And again, just look at the ingredients, what they used. If you're looking for a stock, look for one maybe that says, made with whole chicken, made with chicken bones, chicken meat. The more you can find out about what's in there, the better off you're going to be, simply because, again, the labeling laws draw no distinction. So, and I would definitely, in all cases, if you're buying it, stay away from the bone broth. That is hyper marketed. It's outrageous. I would literally say, if the cost of the things that I might not otherwise throw away in a stock is certainly less than a dime a quart, and they're charging over $12. I mean, it's obscene. So don't get ripped off. Don't buy into that hype. If you're looking for something like that, just get a good, organic, healthful stock. You're going to get everything that's in a bone broth and then some.
Okay, great. Well, it looks like we're out of time. Do you have any closing comments or thoughts, Michael?
Sure. Again, hopefully, again, thank everyone for coming. I appreciate your time. If the course is something that speaks to you or interested, check it out. Eric will put up the website, or he has. There's links there about the course as well. Any questions that you have that we didn't get to talk about, you can email us at the website, and I actually answer all those myself. So give me a day or two. If I've had a rough call night, probably give me 2 or 3 days. But I eventually will answer them all for you. And once again, thanks everybody. Thanks so much for being here today. And we'll continue our series with something next month. Oh, and if there's anything you want in particular for me to talk about in terms of practical culinary medicine, come on, let us know. We're excited about it. We're here for you. This is all about empowering you.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, Eric.